Hello and welcome everyone. Is my voice clear and audible?
अरे मम्मा तो
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. So let's begin with a short meditation. Sit back comfortably. Withdraw your attention from the outside world and bring it to yourself. Now bring your attention to the silence. Notice the quietness of your surroundings, the stillness of your body, and the calmness of your mind. As you sit in silence, imagine any thoughts or worries slowly drifting away, like clouds disappearing into the sky. Allow yourself to let go of any mental chatter, any distractions, and any expectations. Allow yourself to tune into your inner world. Listen to the whispers of your heart, the intuition that guides you, and the wisdom that lies within. Silence is not just the absence of noise, it's a presence, a power, and a peace that can transform your life. It's a reminder that you are more than your thoughts, more than your emotions, and more than your experiences. Take a deep breath in, and as soon as you exhale, repeat to yourself, I am silence, I am stillness, I am peace. Feel the sense of calmness, clarity, and connection that arises from embracing silence. Thank you so much. So let's begin with today's session. Just share the screen with you. Okay, so today we're going to start reading from silence. Okay. Are there any other portals apart from those you just mentioned? Yes, there are. The unmanifested is not separate from the manifested. It pervades this world, but it is so well disguised that almost everybody misses it completely. If you know where to look, you'll find it everywhere. A portal opens up every moment. तो यहाँ पे ऑथर कह रहे हैं जो अनमैनिफेस्टेड है जो हम जैसे कह सकते हैं द सोल द डिवाइन द सुप्रीम सोल वो manifested as in our body, uh, everything that is around us. So what is unmanifested मतलब जो आंखों से नहीं दिखता, जैसे the divine, it is not separated from everything that we see. बट जैसे ऑथर कह रहे हैं इट इज सो वेल डिस्गाइज्ड कि ऑलमोस्ट हर कोई इसको मिस करता है, हर किसी को इसकी अवेयरनेस और एक्सपीरियंस नहीं होता। तो यही है कि अगर हम देखेंगे, अगर हम महसूस करेंगे, एक्सपीरियंस करेंगे तो हमें सब जगह वो गॉड एसेंस फील होगा। Do you hear that dog barking in the distance or that car passing by? Listen carefully. Can you feel the presence of the unmanifested in that? You can't. Look for it in the silence out of which the sounds come and into which they return. Pay more attention to the silence than to the sounds. Paying attention to outer silence creates inner silence. The mind becomes still. A portal is opening up. Every sound is born out of silence, dies back into silence, and during its lifespan is surrounded by silence. Silence enables the sound to be. It is an intrinsic but unmanifested part of every sound, every musical note, every song, every word. The unmanifested is present in this world as silence. This is why it has been said that nothing in this world is so like God as silence. All you have to do is pay attention to it. Even during a conversation, become conscious of the gaps between words, the brief silent intervals between sentences. As you do that, the dimension of stillness grows within you. You cannot pay attention to silence without simultaneously becoming still within. Silence without, stillness within. You have entered the unmanifested. हर एक चीज जो भी हम कर रहे हैं, इवन अगर हम किसी चीज को देखते हैं, कोई साउंड सुनते हैं, in between everything we can go, we can experience the silence between the words. So that is what connects us to the unmanifested, the silence in between everything. Okay, space. Just as no sound can exist without silence, nothing can exist without no thing, without the empty space that enables it to be. Every physical object or body has come out of nothing, is surrounded by nothing, and will eventually return to nothing. Not only that, but even inside every physical body, there is far more nothing than something. Physicists tell us that the solidity of matter is an illusion. Even seemingly solid matter, including your physical body, is nearly 2% empty space. So vast are the distances between the atoms compared to their size. What is more, even inside every atom, there is mostly empty space. What is left is more like a vibrational frequency that particles of solid matter, more like a musical note. तो ये क्वांटम ऑफ फिजिक्स भी है जिसमें ये सब सिखाया जाता है कि whatever we see is everything is just an illusion, none of this is real. Buddhists have known that for over 4,500 years. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, states the Heart Sutra, one of the best known ancient Buddhist texts. The essence of all things is emptiness. The unmanifested is not only present in this world as silence, it also pervades the entire physical universe as space from within and without. This is just as easy to miss as silence. Everybody pays attention to the things in space, but who pays attention to space itself? मतलब हम सब जो भी यहाँ पे चीजें जो भी देखते हैं everything that we see, the manifested world is an illusion. The unmanifested जो हम अपने आंखों से नहीं देख सकते, that is what is real. That is what connects us to the divine. तो हम किस चीज पे अटेंशन देते हैं, जो भी हम आंखों से देखते हैं, बट हम स्पेस को, अनमैनिफेस्टेड पे अटेंशन देते ही नहीं। You seem to be implying that emptiness or nothing is not just nothing. There is some mysterious quality to it. What is this nothing? You cannot ask such a question. Your mind is trying to make nothing into something. The moment you make it into something, you have missed it. Nothing, space, is the appearance of the unmanifested as an externalized phenomenon in a sense perceived world. तो अगर हम ये क्वेश्चन पूछेंगे कि व्हाट इज स्पेस, व्हाट इज दिस नथिंग दैट यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट, तो ये सब फिर हमारे माइंड हमसे क्वेश्चंस पूछ रहे हैं, और फिर वील मिस द एंटायर एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ दिस unmanifested world, of the actual reality. That's about as much as one can say about it, and even that is a kind of paradox. It cannot become an object of knowledge. You can't do a PhD on nothing. When scientists study space, they usually make it into something and thereby miss its essence entirely. Not surprisingly, the latest theory is that space isn't empty at all, that it is filled with some substance. Once you have a theory, it's not too hard to find a substantiate it. Once you have a theory, it's not too hard to find evidence to substantiate it, at least until some other theory comes along. Nothing can only become a portal into the unmanifested for you if you don't try to grasp or understand it. तो ये जो अनमैनिफेस्टेड है, जो हम आंखों से नहीं देख सकते, वो हम खाली फील और एक्सपीरियंस कर सकते हैं। इसमें हम ज्यादा लॉजिक नहीं लगा सकते। जैसे साइंटिस्ट वो स्पेस में इतना स्टडी करते हैं, इतना उसके बारे में जानने की कोशिश करते हैं, बट उससे क्या होता है, जो एसेंस है, दे डोंट होल्ड ऑन टू द एसेंस, टू दे डोंट होल्ड ऑन टू द रियलिटी underneath, above the illusion. तो इसमें वही ऑथर समझा रहे हैं कि इस पे ज्यादा माइंड को नहीं बीच में लाना है। इसको हमें फील और एक्सपीरियंस करना है, साइलेंस से, मेडिटेशन से, माइंड से डिटैच होके। Isn't that what we are doing here? Not at all. I am giving you pointers to show you how you can bring the dimension of the unmanifested into your life. We are not trying to understand it. There is nothing to understand. Space has no existence. To exist literally means to stand out. You cannot understand space because it doesn't stand out. Although in itself it has no existence, it enables everything else to exist. Silence has no existence either, nor does the unmanifested. तो इसमें हम ज्यादा माइंड से अंडरस्टैंड नहीं कर सकते। ये हमें सिर्फ एक्सपीरियंस करना है, फील करना है। So what happens if you withdraw attention from the objects in space and become aware of space itself? What is the essence of this room? The furniture, pictures, and so on are in the room, but they are not the room. The floors, walls, and ceiling define the boundary of the room, but they are not the room either. So, what is the essence of the room? Space, of course, empty space. There would be no room without it. Since space is nothing, we can say that what is not there is more important than what is there. So become aware of the space that is all around you. Don't think about it, feel it, as it were. Pay attention to nothing. जैसे ऑथर समझा रहे कि अगर हम अपने आसपास जहाँ रूम जहाँ पे हम बैठे हैं, हम वो देखें, हम फर्नीचर्स देखे, जो भी हमारे रूम में पड़ा है, कबर्ड, पिक्चर्स, जो भी है, उनको देखें, तो अगर हम देखें फ्लोर्स, वॉल, सीलिंग, अगर ये नहीं होते, तो ये रूम भी नहीं होता। तो ये रूम का एसेंस क्या है, व्हाट इज दिस रूम, दिस बिल्डिंग, व्हाट इज एवरीथिंग ऑन, इट्स स्पेस। तो उसके बिना तो ये कुछ भी नहीं होता ना। तो इससे ऐसे ही इवन इन आवर सेल्फ वी हैव टू रियलाइज दैट वी आर अ सोल, एंड उसके बिना कुछ भी ये बॉडी होती ही नहीं। As you do that, a shift in consciousness takes place inside you. Here is why. The inner equivalent to objects in space, such as furniture, walls, and so on, are your mind objects, thought, emotions, and the objects of the senses. And the inner equivalent of space is the consciousness that enables your mind objects to be, just as space allows all things to be. So if you withdraw attention from things, objects in space, you automatically withdraw attention from your mind objects as well. In other words, you cannot think and be aware of space, or of silence for that matter. By becoming aware of the empty space around you, you simultaneously become aware of the space of no mind, of pure consciousness, the unmanifested. This is how the contemplation of space can become a portal for you. तो जैसे ऑथर समझा रहे कि जो भी हम आप अपने आंखों से देखते हैं, जिनको हम डिफाइन करते हैं एज फर्नीचर, वॉल्स, एंड सो ऑन, वो सब माइंड से आइडेंटिफाइड है, माइंड मेड है। ये जो नेम, फॉर्म, ये जो भी है, इट इज ऑल आइडेंटिफाइड बाय द माइंड। तो जैसे ही हम उससे हटेंगे, जब हम माइंड आइडेंटिफिकेशन के थ्रू नहीं देखेंगे कुछ भी, तो हमें क्या अंदर से फील होगा? जस्ट द एम्प्टी स्पेस व्हेन वी डोंट सी ऑल दीज माइंड आइडेंटिफाइड ऑब्जेक्ट। तो उससे जब हम अपने माइंड को विड्रॉ करेंगे, तो वी विल स्टार्ट फीलिंग द एम्प्टी स्पेस इन बिटवीन, द साइलेंस फॉर दैट मैटर। तो जब हम इससे अवेयर होते जाएंगे, विल बिकम अवेयर, विल स्टार्ट कमिंग इनटू द नो माइंड, क्योंकि हम सब माइंड आइडेंटिफाइड ऑब्जेक्ट से हट चुके हैं। That's when we start feeling the silence, the unmanifested, जो आंखों से नहीं दिखता, the space, the beauty around it. Space and silence are two aspects of the same thing, the same nothing. They are an externalization of inner space and inner silence, which is stillness, the infinitely creative womb of all existence. तो साइलेंस और स्पेस दोनों चीजें क्या है? दे कम आउट ऑफ नथिंग, तो इट इज, दे आर व्हाट इज इंटरनली विद इन अस। जो हमारा इनर स्पेस, इनर साइलेंस है, वो ही हम जब बाहर एक्सपीरियंस करते हैं, तब हमें देन वी अंडरस्टैंड कि एवरीथिंग दैट वी आर सीइंग इज नॉट एक्चुअली रियल. Most humans are completely unconscious of this dimension. There is no inner space, no stillness. They are out of balance. In other words, they know the world, or they think they do, but they don't know God. They identify exclusively with their own physical and psychological form, unconscious of essence. And because every form is highly unstable, they live in fear. This fear causes a deep misperception of themselves and of other humans, a distortion in their vision of the world. So mostly, कोई भी aware नहीं है. Most of the humans, they are not aware of this, unmanifested. They are not aware of the reality within, the real self. तो वो कभी इस बात को एक्सपीरियंस ही नहीं करते, वो दे डोंट नो गॉड बिकॉज दे हैवंट एक्सपीरियंस्ड द रियलिटी, द इनर सेल्फ विच इज बियॉन्ड नेम एंड फॉर्म, जिसको हम इन आंखों से नहीं देख सकते, खाली फील और एक्सपीरियंस कर सकते हैं। वो बहुत ज्यादा इस फिजिकल आइडेंटिटी में फंसे हुए हैं, तभी फियर में जीते हैं, बिकॉज उनको रियलिटी लगती है ये माइंड बॉडी फॉर्म, दैट इज व्हाट दे फील इज द रियलिटी। If some cosmic convulsion brought about the end of our world, the unmanifested would remain totally unaffected by this. A Course in Miracles expresses this truth poignantly. Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Nothing real can be threatened. मतलब जो रियलिटी है उसको कोई थ्रेट नहीं है, कल को जैसे ऑथर कह रहे हैं, ये कॉस्मिक कन्वर्जन, ये दुनिया खत्म भी हो जाए तो भी जो अनमैनिफेस्टेड है, जो डिवाइन है, जो सुप्रीम सोल है, दैट विल बी अनअफेक्टेड, बिकॉज वो इस वर्ल्डली उसमें है ही नहीं ना, इट इज बियॉन्ड दिस, इट्स फॉर्मलेस, नेमलेस, कोई फिजिकल फॉर्म तो है ही नहीं उनका। तो वही एक बुक में एक्सप्रेस किया है कि जो रियलिटी है उसको थ्रेटन नहीं कर सकते, कि इट वोंट एग्जिस्ट बिकॉज इट इज इमॉर्टल एंड इट इज ऑलवेज ऑलवेज देयर। तो जो what nothing unreal exists, herein lies the peace of God. Okay, if you remain in conscious connection with the unmanifested, you value, love, and deeply respect the manifested and every life form in it as an expression of the one life beyond form. You also know that every form is destined to dissolve again, and that ultimately nothing out here matters all that much. You have overcome the world, in the words of Jesus, or as the Buddha put it, you have crossed over to the other shore. तो ऑथर कह रहे हैं, जब हम ये कॉन्शियसली कनेक्टेड होंगे विद द डिवाइन, तो हम हर एक चीज की वैल्यू और रिस्पेक्ट करेंगे, बिकॉज हम हमें ये अवेयरनेस होगी कि एवरीथिंग हैज कम फ्रॉम द डिवाइन, इट्स एन एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ द वन लाइफ विच इज बियॉन्ड फॉर्म, विच इज फॉर्मलेस। और फिर उससे क्या होता है, हम ये अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं कि whatever we see in this manifested world is not real, और ये सब टेम्पररी और ये इवेंचुअली एंड होना ही है। So nothing really matters that much. This world is just a play, it's just a drama. तो उस वे में क्या होगा, हम किसी भी चीज से अटैच नहीं होंगे, कोई एक्सपेक्टेशंस नहीं होंगे, हम कॉन्स्टेंटली कनेक्टेड रहेंगे विद द डिवाइन। The true nature of space and time. Now consider this. If there were nothing but silence, it wouldn't exist for you. You wouldn't know what it is. Only when sound appears does silence come into being. तो मतलब जब अगर कुछ भी ना होता ना स्पेस में, तो हमें ये अवेयरनेस ही नहीं होती कि साइलेंस भी क्या है। तो जैसे ऑथर कह रहे हैं, जब साउंड आता है देन we understand the importance of silence. Similarly, if there were only space without any objects in space, it wouldn't exist for you. Imagine yourself as a point of consciousness floating in the vastness of space. No stars, no galaxies, just emptiness. Suddenly, space wouldn't be vast anymore. It wouldn't be there at all. There would be no speed, no movement from here to there. At least 2 points of reference are needed for distance and space to come into being. Space comes into being the moment one becomes two, and as two become the 10,000 things as Lao Tse calls the manifested world. Space becomes more vast and more vast. So world and space arise simultaneously. Nothing could be without space, yet space is nothing. Before the universe came into being, before the Big Bang, if you like, there wasn't a vast empty space waiting to be filled. There was no space, there was no thing. There was only the unmanifested, the one. When the one became the 10,000 things, suddenly space seemed to be there and enabled the many to be. Where did it come from? Was it created by God to accommodate the universe? Of course not. Space is no thing, so it was never created. Wow. तो यहाँ से हमें एक बहुत एक डीप अंडरस्टैंडिंग मिलती है कि ये जो ये क्रिएटेड नहीं है, दिस इज जस्ट अ साइकिल व्हिच हैज बीन गोइंग ऑन एंड जैसे ऑथर ने कहा, अगर जो ये स्पेस इसलिए क्यों हम कहते हैं स्पेस है, क्योंकि इसमें जो ये 10,000 थिंग्स, अब जो ये वर्ल्ड है, तभी हमें इसमें स्पेस हैज बीन दिस वर्ल्ड इज ऑक्यूपाइड विद इन दिस स्पेस. तो अगर ये वर्ल्ड, ये मैनिफेस्टेड वर्ल्ड नहीं होता तो स्पेस भी नहीं होता, दे वुड हैव जस्ट बीन नथिंग. We would just be floating around, the souls would just be floating around, the pure consciousness would just be floating around. But क्योंकि ये manifested world है, तभी हम स्पेस और साइलेंस को अंडरस्टैंड कर पाते हैं. Go out on a clear night and look up at the sky. The thousands of stars you can see with the naked eye are no more than an infinitesimal fraction of what is there. 1,000 million galaxies can already be detected with the most powerful telescopes. Each galaxy an island universe containing thousands of millions of stars. Yet, what is even more awe-inspiring is the infinity of space itself, the depth and stillness that allows all of that magnificence to be. Nothing could be more awe-inspiring and majestic than the inconceivable vastness and stillness of space. And yet, what is it? Emptiness, vast emptiness. What appears to us as space in our universe, perceived through the mind and the senses, is the unmanifested itself, externalized. It is the body of God. And the greatest miracle is this: that stillness and vastness that enables the universe to be is not just out there in space, it is also within you. So the soul and the supreme soul are constantly connected. We are constantly connected to the unmanifested, to the divine. When you are utterly and totally present, you encounter it as the still inner space of no mind. Within you, it is vast in depth, not in extension. Spatial extension is ultimately a misperception of infinite depth, an attribute of the one transcendental reality. According to Einstein, space and time are not separate. I don't really understand it, but I think he's saying that time is the fourth dimension of space. He calls it the space-time continuum. Yes, what you perceive externally as space and time are ultimately illusory, but they contain a core of truth. They are the two essential attributes of God: infinity and eternity, perceived as if they had an external existence without you. तो ये जो space and time है, ये है illusions ही. All that we see is illusion, but they are essential for us uh, for the external existence. The two essential attributes of God, infinity and eternity, perceived as if they had external existence outside you. Within you, both space and time have an inner equivalent that reveals their true nature as well as your own. Whereas space is the still, infinitely deep realm of no mind, the inner equivalent of time is presence, awareness of the eternal now. Remember that there is no distinction between them. When space and time are realized within as the unmanifested, no mind and presence, external space and time continue to exist for you, but they become much less important. The world too continues to exist for you, but it will not bind you anymore. तो जब हम it internally realize करते हैं जब हम internally connect करते हैं divine से unmanifested से तो ये जो भी हमारे बाहर जो manifested world है जो illusion है जो temporary है फिर space time ये भी matter नहीं करता because हमें पता है कि it is all temporary. So what it is that फिर it doesn't bind us anymore. It exists, but इससे हम बंधते नहीं है. Hence, the ultimate purpose of the world lies not within the world, but in transcendence of the world. Just as you would not be conscious of space if there were no objects in space, the world is needed for the unmanifested to be realized. तो अगर ये वर्ल्ड नहीं होते अगर ये एग्जिस्टेंस नहीं होता ये नेम माइंड बॉडी फॉर्म नहीं होता तो हम अनमैनिफेस्टेड से भी कनेक्ट कैसे करते we need the soul needs a body to think to feel to experience. You may have heard the Buddhist saying, if there were no illusion, there would be no enlightenment. It is through the world and ultimately through you that the unmanifested knows itself. You are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important you are. Wow, this is so profound. तो ये realization होना कि you know कि we are constantly connected to the divine. We are a being, a soul, and everything that we see is this manifested world. तो जब ये realization है तो that is our purpose that we convey this awareness realization to others as well जो अभी तक इतने spiritually enlightened नहीं है जिनको ये awareness नहीं है जो अभी भी mind body form में ही फंसे हुए हैं तो तभी हमें ये डिवाइन डिवाइन इंटरवेंशन जैसे कहते हैं या हमें डिवाइन टचिंग हुई है हमें ये अवेयरनेस मिली है so that we can spread this to others as well. So that is why the author is saying that we are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. So that is how important we are and we all need to remember this. Okay. Conscious death. Apart from dreamless sleep, which I mentioned already, there is one other involuntary portal. Sorry. It opens up briefly at the time of physical death. Even if you have missed all the other opportunities of spiritual realization during your lifetime, one last portal will open up for you immediately after the body has died. There are countless accounts by people who had a visual impression of this portal as radiant light and then returned from what is commonly known as a near death experience. Many of them also spoke of a sense of blissful serenity and deep peace. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it is described as the luminous splendor of the colorless light of emptiness, which it says is your own true self. This portal opens up only very briefly, and, and unless you have already encountered the dimension of the unmanifested in your lifetime, you will likely miss it. Most people carry too much residual resistance, too much fear, too much attachment to sensory experience, too much identification with the manifested world. So they see the portal, turn away in fear, and then lose consciousness. Most of what happens after that is involuntary and automatic. Eventually, there will be another round of birth and death. Their presence wasn't strong enough yet for conscious immortality. वाओ! तो यहाँ पे ऑथर समझा रहे कि एक और पोर्टल कब खुलता है दैट इज इनवॉलंटरी और वो कब होता है एट द टाइम ऑफ आवर फिजिकल डेथ मतलब अगर हमने अपनी लाइफ टाइम में बाकी सारे पोर्टल्स मिस कर दिए जो भी ऑथर ने इस चैप्टर में हमें सिखाए हैं बताए हैं तो हम लास्ट पोर्टल जो होता है जहाँ पे हम एक्सपीरियंस कर सकते हैं द अनमैनिफेस्टेड द डिवाइन is after the body dies after this the soul leaves the body तो ये सब people have experienced this near death experience जिसको कहते हैं जिसमें वो क्या experience करते हैं this blissful state of serenity and peace this light that they see तो बट ये क्या होता है ये बहुत ब्रीफली ही ओपन अप होता है और जिन्होंने अपने लाइफ टाइम में डिवाइन एक्सपीरियंस नहीं किया हो और जो स्पिरिचुअली अवेकन नहीं हुए वो उनके लिए ये मिस भी कर सकते हैं दे विल मिस दिस जब वो होगा भी एट द टाइम ऑफ डेथ उनको वो वो रियलाइजेशन या वो अपॉर्चुनिटी मिस कर देंगे फिर क्या होता है देन अगेन दे गो इनटू द साइकिल ऑफ birth and that again because the soul is immortal the unmanifested तो formless है birthless timeless immortal है तो वो that comes into birth and death तो दोबारा वो साइकिल फिर रिपीट होती है तो इस लाइफ टाइम में वो इतने कॉन्शियस नहीं थे कि वो उस डिवाइन प्रेजेंस को उस अनमैनिफेस्टेड को एक्सपीरियंस कर सके ओके So going through this portal does not mean annihilation. As with all the other portals, your radiant true nature remains, but not the personality. In any case, whatever is real or of true value in your personality is your true nature shining through. This is never lost. Nothing that is of value, nothing that is real is ever lost. Okay, so I think we'll end here. तो कल हम आगे यहाँ से continue करेंगे. So I'll just share the questions with you. So the first question is, according to the author, the unmanifested does not liberate you until you enter it consciously. What do you feel about this? Do you agree or disagree? Please share your experiences and opinions. What is the second question here? What is the inner equivalent of space? How are space and silence connected to each other? And how can we derive benefit by becoming aware of the empty space around us? Okay, so these are the two questions. So I'll be see you all tomorrow again. Thank you so much for joining.